and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this monthly update and Ascension guidance for June. So can you believe it's June already? Well, I sure can't. So I am officiating this beautiful energy by just coming here to a river beach and really just being in tune with the nature, with the elements, and inviting a more resting, nourishing, nurturing energy of self-fulfillment, because this is in a way an energy of June which is much lighter than we had in the previous months, because as you know, we're still in the 11 universal year, which is just wrapping things up so fast. It's like this fast forward energy, you know. There's like, is there a break? Can I place my finger on a pause button? That's kind of like the energy, how it feels like. So we are finally feeling that more like celestial flow, where we can have a more easier time. I did some research, and besides June being a 17 universal month, which adds up to 8, which, as you know, in tarot we know that as the star, and then when it adds up into 8 we get this strength, this self-mastery, attainment, and message of the number. Whenever we have that, you know, it's always this essence of immense healing light. But it's the kind of healing through harmony. It's not the healing through, because you know there's many levels. We sometimes heal through oppression as well, because we need things to activate and stimulate our inner resources that perhaps are underdeveloped or laying dormant. So it's kind of like the pushing triggers we need. But June is more of a harmonious energy, because we will also have in the beginning of the month a grand trine. And I think astrologers are saying that this is a more easier kind of flowing energy, which offers us more opportunity to be playful, to be outside, you know, indoors, enjoy nature. That's also the Gemini period we're in now. Gemini is all about expansion through new things, through communicating and seeing new things. Also, you know, short distances trips. As you know, that's why I always, in this period, I go and take a lot of hikes and these daily retreats. So when you just go about and you want to have that joie de vivre, you know, that energy of feeling why you're alive on earth and how just your presence is enough. That's why I feel June wants to teach us in that matter. So I think the grand water trine will be a water energy. I think it's a water energy. I'm not sure, because again, I'm not an astrologer, but I think it's associated with Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune, which is, again, it's this kind of like celestial flow. And I believe we will be getting more messages, more spirit attunements. For a while, for me at least, it felt like our energy was focused a lot on what's happening here on the ground, on earth. You know, people talk about the ground crew. It's kind of like, for a while it felt like, oh, am I just the ground crew here doing the dirty work? And it's not dirty, really. You know, sometimes we feel like that because we're washed over by so many different feelings when we're walking about this planet and witnessing all the change. And this as well is instigated, I think Mars is, for over 6 months now, it's going to be in Aquarius, which is, again, that sign of softening through that masculine core, which is the inner male, and that polarity of the masculine principle, or, you know, even patriarchy, and how now it's needing to soften this whole year. As you know, it's the feminine principle coming, and it's softening things. But at the same time, we say, well, how is it softening if we're witnessing such turmoil and change and a rapid forward moving, like accelerating times, and things and people and plant life and animal kingdom life leaving the planet, and we may feel restless, even hurt sometimes, people who are deeply sensitive, because the moment we have this ground crew perspective only, we feel like, oh, it's just so intense. We have to flow in our balanced ascension, this union, this cosmic union, this flow of the dance of spirit and flesh, and how this higher perspective just penetrates more and more of our reality through this, what we call the searing or the piercing presence within us, which will unveil new perspectives every time. Because every time we say things like, oh, this is how it is on the planet, we're always stating a current condition that's temporary, of course, and it's now, it's what we're feeling now, but is it the ultimate? So for us to really open up to more and more of the ultimate and express more of that inquisitive nature within us, that mischievous, playful energy, which as well Gemini brings, it's important for us to continue to be open and not say, well, we have it and it's intense, because so far every month has been speeding up, and even as you know, in the celestial realms, that's why the planets go retrograde, and I think we're entering the more retrograde state right now. And I think it will happen also with Mercury in July, in the middle of July, there will be a retrograde, but it's kind of like this slowing down. It's not a, you know, stopping kind of energy. It's a slowing down movement for us to go deeper. And every time we're allowed this deeper presence to penetrate more and more of the layers, we're actually going to uncover much more, and the perspectives will shift. And it's not about external conditions changing, it's us shifting from internally, and that's what the whole ascension is about. So the more we're able to ground this searing presence, which is the pivotal point of mastering divine neutrality, and divine neutrality brings us freedom. There is no sense of true freedom. I've talked about in the previous video about life force liberation. It was quite a long video, some of my bantering as well. But because this is such a rapid forward moving energy, even, like we say, even in the heavenly realms or even the celestial scheme of things, there always need to be pauses or breakdowns, you know. It's kind of like, you know, when you're doing a puzzle, right? You're having all the pieces, and usually first I do a square, and then you pick one element that's kind of like very apparent, you put it inside, you do that, and then it's kind of like you need to kind of, you know, watch it a bit from afar to do the finishing touches. And this is how June feels like. It's like a little bit of that, you know, because we get too involved with things sometimes. And if we get too involved, that means our ego is somehow still playing or acting out. Or it's not always the kind of ego we imagine it to be. Sometimes it's just a wounded child that sees things, you know, like I've shared with you in the previous video how when I used to be here in this village as a child, we came here for a trip. Because of course we live somewhere else, and it felt so magical. And now I see it nowadays with so many changes, it doesn't feel like it's the same place anymore. So recently we've been meditating and we've been asking about this whole process, and the truth is, every hike I do, everywhere I go, there's not just the trees that, you know, they kind of, the forest man-made, you know, kind of way. But it's also the trees that fall down naturally because of either intense or extreme weather conditions. This year we had snowfall after snowfall, and sometimes you just see the whole rivers of trees falling down, and it's a shock because the whole landscape has changed. And this is when we see how influential trees truly are as those rocks, those pillars that basically they bring through the ecosystems that are necessary for so many other, you know, species within plant life and animal life. And we don't even notice until, let's say, something's gone, like a whole river of trees is cut down. And recently we've been asking about this. How is this man-made versus natural change process intertwined, and how this is serving this bigger picture and what's unfolding? And basically Spirit shared with us that these are just minor changes that are actually going to prepare us for greater changes to come. And there are going to be many changes, and a lot of us have roles on this planet that we can't even see, because the Spirit said, well, if you really see your impact, you kind of give up because you think, well, that's too grand, and I'm not playing this game. It's too much. I'm just this little person. And in many cases we have such huge roles, but they're not obvious to, let's say, our human eyes or perception of the mind. It's just very esoteric and mystical in a way. So for me, I've shared with you, I have these assignments. I get them every time I go and witness these areas of deforestation. Either it's natural and man-made. And the bigger truth of unity consciousness, it's one, it's unified. It's one process of things just changing. And we will validate that, you know, in our mind, saying, no, this is like this or this is like that. But true evaluation comes from Spirit. And we will feel different energies. Like, for instance, when trees fall down naturally, I will feel more like the sadness energy when they're leaving. And when I witness man-made bluntly made deforestation, let's say for without any specific reason, the energy will be more like frustration, more like that, oh, you know, like that angst, and it's not the same energy. So when you can feel into the energies, you yourself will see, but then even that will have to be unveiled deeper to see even the deeper truth that man-made and nature-made. Well, man is a part of nature, nature is a part of man. That's like, nature is within man, man is within nature. It's how it was created and designed, and although we don't always act harmoniously with nature because we're not harmoniously in tune with our own inner nature, it just shows up this way. And these are the changes that I guess some souls have agreed to experience, otherwise they wouldn't do these things, that they wouldn't be occurring. Because at a greater level, souls are learning to see the consequences of certain actions, to see, whoa, this is what we can do, or this is what we can create. Well, let's create this instead, because it's more harmonious and unified. And we don't always see the bigger picture, and we get sad or frustrated or angry even, and upset. So we take things too much just from the ground crew perspective, and we can open up and flourish at that time. So we asked recently, because Spirit said what's most important now is to be in joy. And I said, well, how can you be in joy when you come in a field of cut down trees or fallen trees? And it's very difficult to say, well, I'm a human, I will have that inner child feelings, and I'll be flooded through, you know, overflooded with these feelings. What do I do? And I had this answer, well, my dance is something that it always moves me in my vortex, but I can't dance there, you know, it's like no space, or it's like uneven ground, and it's like, how can you do that? And then Spirit said, what if you just dance in your mind, just see yourself spinning, see the joy, because dance in itself is also an essence. It's not just a physical act, just like anything born of life force is. So when you align with that essence, I've talked about this in the Liberation of Life Force video, you will see that it's much easier in a way, and much more effective just as well. It doesn't have to be that, you know, we need a lot to shift. Spirit said you don't need a lot in order to shift. You just need to do it consciously. There needs to be conscious searing presence there, so that you can see a greater reality, and how you can actually, instead of being sad or, you know, over flooded with emotion, just feel into how you can assist through that joy. And sometimes we feel guilty. It's like, how can I be joyous if there's this happening? How can you not be? That's what Spirit says. It's like, how can you not be joyous? Because it's your internal nature. So this month, by unwinding and being more playful, creative, just like, you know, that, like a fairy from flower to flower, that's how we can be this month. It's the highest potential. Not necessarily we're going to choose it. Not necessarily all of you will feel it. But it's that potential of being more charged with life force, to see the bigger picture, and then to bring the element of joy. And through the elements, of course, with nature, Spirit said, it's not just about being yourself. We've mastered that. A lot of us have done that. It's about conscious sharing. Let's say sometimes we go on these trips. We say, oh, let's do these picnic trips, or sometimes beach trips. Sometimes there will be hiking trips. The Spirit said it's very important now for those of us who work at grander levels, and you know, I do that as a nature healer. Our work is not just what we do behind the computers or what we do with other people, like people now do these events. It's the work that we actually do through the core of our being. And it's wherever you go, you're actually doing the work, but it's not considered as work. It's not a paid job. So sometimes it's challenging, and Spirit said, yes, it is, because it's not a paid job. But it's still so very important at this time. It's much different than what people do. You know, Spirit has been showing me, people have become almost obsessed with these indoor classes and workshops. And even I was asked, why don't you do that? I said, I'm not a workshopper. I don't do that. I'm going to do retreats in divine timing when things align and resources align, because it's more aligned with the natural element and the nature of the free spirit that I carry and that I, you know, represent. And this way you help to embody it within others. It's much different, you know, when people have these classes. People go to these Ascension schools, Ascension classes. That's just a class. It's not necessarily something that will be a school of life for you. I've met a lot of people who go to these classes, but as humans, they still have blind spots. You know, recently I had this example with someone who kept saying, I've mastered this, I've mastered that, I go to these classes, I go to that. I'm like, that's nothing. That shows nothing about you or who you are, because Your true value, your true embodiment does not come from what you do. It's really not about that. So this month, try to feel into more just the nature, the very nature of who you are, and how that's enough, and how brilliant that is in truth. You know, so in a way, this is more of that kind of like calming down period before we're going to have, as you know, in July, we're going to have the eclipses. It's a more inward time. I think the outside or external materialization will come more in the autumn time or the fall time, and we might feel like we want to push forward in a way, but it's not time yet for the certain physical things to change, because what is occurring in the energetic fields, if you're going to tune into it, is far more important now. And if that's calling you, it's definitely more important than what you think you should be doing and manifesting, because we always want to push, you know, we always want to push a little. That's kind of like the human stubbornness, you know, that exists. It's universal human stubbornness. I like that. So feel your value, that it doesn't come from what you've learned, it doesn't come from how many books you've read, what you think you've mastered. This is about really feeling the core, the rediscovery of your inner nature, that core self which is innocent and pure. You know, I had this one example with one person. I have to tell you this because I think it fits into this whole picture. The person kept wanting to make contact and in communication with me and want to so badly enter into my life. And this way, you're not offering freedom to another being. You're not giving them a choice. You know, I'm here if you want to connect. You're kind of like doing that through extortion and manipulation. You know, it's like if people sometimes give you a gift, but it's conditional, and sometimes people won't see that it is. Many times we lie to ourselves. We live in these false pretenses. Well, it's unconditional, but in truth, it's not. I'm giving you because I want you to be my friend, or I'm giving you because, you know, I want this from you. I want your attention or energy or your love. Freedom, which is something we're mastering, especially this month, it's universal. It's all the time. But this month is really a chance to step through that threshold. Freedom is not something that we just internally develop. It's also something we can offer. And you can offer it to another. You can offer it to the planet. Instead of going, oh, crying, these animals died, these trees left, that happened, you know. That's also in a way not fully aligned with freedom. Because when you're not feeling free, when you're doing things that way, then of course you're not gifting that freedom. So that's why joy, because it's so intrinsically connected with the element of freedom. You can't be in joy if you're not free. And you're not really free if you're not feeling joy. It's basically, you know, all essences of divinity are intertwined. When you develop one essence, you don't just develop one essence and then that's it. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one. It's not a linear process. You're expanding from your inner core, from the circle. And imagine in the circle, the rule applies that you take one step out of the circle, the whole of circle expands. You didn't just do a line outside, you know, you did just expanded your territory in a linear fashion. So this unconditional freedom, what does it truly mean? Not just to be it, but to also give it, to offer it to others. You know, I felt so many people giving themselves excuses. Oh, this is because that, you know, I've met people who are literally, I have to tell you this, literally describing themselves how they are all the time. It's like their world, their reality has become a description of who they think they are. And it's not what their actions will show. It's not what they demonstrate in life, but it's how they describe themselves. And it's this constant, their life reality becomes a constant description. I did that, I mastered that, I went to this class, I became this, I have this degree, I have this diploma, I'm so good at that, I can help you with that. Because it's literally when you shift into that simplicity. And recently we did this meditation outside when we were in the mountains. And we did this channeling, and I asked, well, Spirit, why do I love my mother so much? Not from the way daughter loves mother, but just as a being, why do I have such great love for her? And Spirit said, because she is so simple, because she represents this simplicity, this like, you know, like someone who sees it from the outside might almost say, well, this is not really a smart person. It's not true. It's the kind of intelligence that's really like this childlike, pure intelligence. And this is what I notice in so many people. It's underdeveloped because it's seen as not developed. But this is our distorted perception, because this world, this pressure of the world kept pushing us towards be better, do greater, master yourself in this way. True mastery is not what majority of the people believes it is. Because when you mature, you actually also become more youthful. You're more younger in a way. So again, it's an interdisciplinary and interdependent process. So it's very important, this question for this month. How can I experience in myself unconditional freedom? How can I live it, and then how can I give it? How can I gift unconditional freedom? In the way I communicate, in the way I build relationships. Relationship is anything from day-to-day experience, a daily relationship, to something you have maybe for years in your life. It doesn't matter, it continues to build up. So yeah, definitely, because we have been mastering this divine neutrality, this meant that we were pushed into sometimes extreme conditions. Volunteer souls, we always have training. If you don't understand this, there is an audio MP3, like a mini book about cosmic training for volunteer souls. If you felt your whole life was like one push to the other, it's intense, then you will see that everything we do is basically, it's like a training ground. But then you master and move to the next level, you don't. That's everything about mastery. Mastery is not about, I've reached this state, I'm so masterful in this, you know, and I can assist you in this because I'm so good at this. It's not about that. It's like a spiraling journey. It's the personal stairway or staircase that you yourself are moving through. On this moving through journey, you're also meeting other counterparts, complements, divine companions, but it has to be, again, shared in freedom. I've met people who will be infatuated with the presence of someone, and that has been an ongoing theme in my life. And what these people want is, they don't see, they like where you are, they like your development, but instead of being really open to work on that themselves, they demand a relationship with you so that you become a mirror or the source of that. But many people are not ready for such pure relationships because they themselves are not withholding themselves and their consciousness at that level. It's not about, you don't deserve to be in my company. It's just like, it's a natural non-resonance, because it's, if someone wears too many masks, they become in a frequency distorted. So no matter how many Ascension classes you have, or workshops you've been to, or certificates of whatever master you have, it's your frequency. Remember that. It's the energy that never lies. And it's that freedom which you live, you know, and where within you live in that freedom is that true alignment, which will show you that. So continue to remember that, how beautiful it can be, this freedom, and how tainted it becomes when we want to create it in an inorganic fashion. That's that. So the art of divine neutrality through joy, as I've said before, May was really intense because a lot of, especially volunteer souls, were almost like we were in this fast accelerated journey, or a journey of fast, speedy acceleration into getting acquainted with these shifts. We've talked about them for years. We said there's going to be earth changes. Some people even talk about drastic earth changes, like the solar event, which will burn the half of the earth, and, you know, just half survives, or, you know, not everyone survives, and this happens and that happens. And I know that many times we see people who go and do tremendous acts of ignorance, or, you know, violation of natural law. It's just how they are with nature, how they litter, how they just act like it's just them and nothing else exists. We all sometimes want to see them off the planet. We're like, oh, I wish you didn't exist here. Oh, you don't deserve to be in this beauty. We all do that sometimes. And these moments, we're not in unconditional love because we don't know what that soul, from the soul perspective, is learning or mastering. So when we play these judges and say, well, it's a good kind of thing this event happens because it will kill off half of the planet that's unconscious or unaware, something like that. Spirit doesn't think that way. Spirit isn't that. Spirit is pure love. So recently when we did the channeling, Spirit said, well, forget about the solar event, because in many cases how it's presented to humanity, it's too drastic, it's too dramatic. And there were timelines, as you know, when certain ETs or ET groups share from their perspective, well, this is what happened, and we're from the future, and that happened to us, and we're now informing you about what is to happen. And remember, timelines are not fixed. because time is not fixed. Time, space is one same thing. You know, when you're traveling through time, you're traveling through space, and vice versa, because time and space is, you know, it's the essence of creation when things become materialized. But what I want to say here is, Spirit, share with us, it's not so drastic in truth. It's not like this will happen and it's predetermined and we're just waiting for that doomsday. It's more of a gradual change that offers the majority of beings who are ready to shift in their own natural time and space of readiness, simultaneously also allowing the planet to shift, because it's not just humans who live on it, it's also the planet that is in a certain density, providing a space of density. But remember, planets, when you know creation, they are created as templates for soul evolution. So if planet is barren, if there is no evolution taking place within a planet that has, you know, lost its life forms, or it's now barren, it's not fulfilling its destined purpose unless it's decided, or the planet agrees, I'm now at the stage of I don't know, remission. You know, we talk about remission. We all have these phases, even in our own lives. When we're not flourishing, we're kind of withdrawing. And I've talked about these life force withdrawals, that they're a natural part of our cycles and rhythms and pulsations in our own cosmic nature and what we are on Earth. So imagine when the planet is thriving with life, the learning curve is always at its maximum potential. Then when the planet is setting off for a new experience, because also souls that have agreed to participate in that will also go partially in that remission, which means certain sacred spaces might energetically close off. There will be, as you know, these shifts that are happening now, earthquakes, volcanoes, these natural or man-made combination. You know, there's a combination because, like I said, nature is in man, man is in nature. We're all a part of creation. From the unity perspective, it's all just changes. It's not these changes, that kind of changes. Yes, from the ground perspective, it's how it is. But when you view it from a higher perspective, when you see it from divine neutrality and your mastered freedom, you will see that there's greater things taking place, that greater things are at play. So this state of remission or withdrawal is just before, you know, it's like the state of pregnancy before your water breaks. You know, it's like, when is it ever going to happen? It's never going to happen, that kind of feeling, and then the water just breaks and there's, you know, the energy passes through. It's very symbolic how birth truly occurs. So in many times we're feeling like nothing's happening, there's this void. And even when it's chaos, the energy still feels like in this chaos, nothing truly moves forward. Chaos is always circling around. But there's periods of remission that are divinely designed to orchestrate these bigger changes that are taking place behind the scenes. And because we're not witnessing them with our eyes, we have to witness them energetically, and we can only do that, of course, when we're in our inner harmony and alignment. If we're not going to hear the messages, we're not going to feel the energy, because we're already going to decide this is what it is, this is how it looks like. From my perspective, this is how the planet is, and that's just your opinion. It's one side of the coin. And recently, when I watched some videos, someone said, none of us who are talking about these changes and ETs and all, we all have our perspective, we all have our belief about it. But none of us know the ultimate reality because we're not in it in that way. We're observing from our earth point of view, or our ground reality. And those of us who are here as spirit guides, as spirit messengers, in these times of transition, even though we have this clear spirit communication and link, it doesn't mean we won't feel things from the human perspective, from the ground crew perspective just as well. You know, so this is where the catch lies, in developing our human self, in developing our inner divine child, so that it aligns with the spirit perspective. And for us, for the volunteer souls, this has been always a major key progression in our evolutionary state here, so that we could truly embody the teacher that we are. The teacher that teaches naturally through example, not the teacher that indoctrinates or, you know, says it's just how it is and this is the way you get to ascend, and this is the ascension classes that are the ultimate thing for you. You know, maybe it suits someone, but it's not the ultimate. It never is. So like all great masters and yogis have already been teaching us, it's about that living in the world but not being of the world, and vice versa. and just feeling each moment as it presents itself, because we always want to escape either in the future, and that's the projection, or the fear makes us fall into past. See, the white butterfly confirmed it. But in true reality, if we truly want to exist the planet, exist and assist, we want to channel the optimum life force potential, we have to be aligned with what is real in the moment. And what is real is not a perception, what we think is real. But the reality is the true reality is your nature of highest upliftment, highest joy, highest state of human compassion, unconditional love. When you are in unconditional love, that divine love can start flowing in, can start pouring in through the gateways of freedom, being the freedom, living the freedom, and then also offering it as a gift, gifting others with your freedom, with your state. Like I said, there's belief systems we might have about ourselves that are not in reality because we wear so many masks. And I've witnessed this in people who always want to give a presentation of themselves rather than just being themselves. And when people communicate with you, or they're trying to communicate, the easiest way that I can detect those people is people who will write these long letters of description of 1,000 things about themselves. And love is so simple. Love is easy. You don't have to use so much words to describe yourself, to assess yourself, to present yourself, to give an image of yourself. This is all false. And if you want to learn more about how this actually deteriorate, I can't pronounce it today. The life force within you, right? So that it actually kind of veins, the energy starts to vein, and kind of like leakages start to occur because these masks exist, and you can't be genuine and authentic. So that's all part of our freedom journey, and the more you liberate yourself, the more you help to liberate the overall energy. Be playful, be outdoors. I'm going to do that as the maximum that I can, and my outdoors experiences are always have fun and pleasure and have work, and the balance is always intact, and the spirit provides these experiences if you're listening to intuition and the pull to be here, go there. But remember, unconditional freedom is not bound to circumstance. Like, I can only feel free when I live in that kind of space, when there's no human interruption, when I'm always just myself in the middle of forest. And even when I go there, forest is, there's deforestation. I'm sad again. I can't feel free anymore again here. It's not true freedom. True freedom is an internal state that's independent and also interdependent with source. But it's a state where the external conditions or people or events do not determine how we feel. So I can only feel free when I have enough space, enough physical space, like prisoners when they're in those cages. And if they can master feeling free, even if they're in that tiny cage, because their consciousness starts to expand. And when you start to work with consciousness, you're envisioning things. That vision more and more penetrates the reality in which you live, but it has to be unconditional, which means we don't get to choose when and how and when this should happen, because there's bigger things playing out. And when we see ourselves big from the perspective of, wow, we're one vessel, it might be perceived as a tiny vessel, but it's still a vessel, and it can channel a lot of life force, and it can do a lot of great things. But at the same time, it has to be surrendered and humble. And I'm just not like a nobody, but I am a surrendered nothingness in terms of what I think I'm doing, in terms of describing it. Because when the life force is doing great things through us, it's not expressing that greatness in these over-grandizing gestures or descriptions or, self-acclaiming awards and things like that. So remember that as you're walking through this beautiful month of June, as you're traveling, if you are traveling, inwardly and outwardly, of course, because of the Gemini energy. And remember to share love with nature, plant life, animal life, but without that excessive fear energy and the constant analyzing of how things and events are unfolding. Because always remember, there's bigger things at hand. So your mantra or your alignment this month could be, I am free, and so is all life. I choose to be free, and I choose to liberate all life through my freedom. So this way you don't see like, oh, I'm in this my space and it's free. But then, you poop on other people's gardens, you know what I mean? It's metaphorical, but still. So that's it for this month. For the general overview and update, if you have any questions, I have to still notify you I haven't been answering my emails for quite a while now. if you have been sending me something, because it's just how I was guided. I was doing other work, which is more, a lot of things happen here in our nature, and I just had to be present with that. I was not behind the computer a lot. The main work I do is usually via my phone, and so I don't have that access there. So I need my computer to do that kind of work, and I haven't been on. It just wasn't time. So just be patient. You know, sometimes there's greater things than just the human things that, you know, people want their questions answered or things like that. Great minds, we don't do that. There's, you know, when we understand freedom, we also understand free will. I need to add this. And free will, when you really understand free will from a non-karmic, non-attached perspective, truly that mastery of illumination that you are, you can't answer anyone's questions, or you can't have something for someone. And when you think someone has something for you, again, remember, that's a false perception. Because even just the slightest apprehension or notion when you think, oh, this is something for you, or I'm giving you this answer, can easily and very, sometimes we don't see it, but in a very minor or major way, can go against the very nature of free will, because you're already creating an inception for someone. So you know where to find anything on my page. For those of you who truly seek divine guidance, not your questions or personal stories to be answered, you can find my personal services page there. It's always available for you. The recent products I developed are my aura sprays. I still have a few left. And when they're no longer available, it says currently unavailable, but they're a really beautiful tool. And recently Spirit has been calling me to that, because it's just beautiful to synthesize the physical body and how the etheric energy moves through it, because a lot of people have been opening their channels. But when you open your channels, it's not always all just nice and fine, you know, things start pouring through. And if you can't handle all the energy, it might be too intense for you. And that's why sometimes when we say, oh, why don't you give me that, Spirit? It's because you're being protected, because you first have to, in your body, develop the kind of responsibility how you will handle all this energy, you know. Otherwise, it might even damage the physical body. And I've experienced that when I was at the threshold of overburning myself and depleting myself, because I didn't manage my resources energetically so wisely. And this was my learning curve and experience of my mastery, because I'm just sometimes handling intense energy currents. And when it feels like I'm resting, I'm actually just integrating those energies, and they have to be, otherwise the body goes haywire. So that's it. And if you want to support my page, you can also find it, my work. You can also find that support, tongue-tied, on my page. And all those of you who do that will receive an Illumined Oracle of divine wisdom and guidance. And I thank you for your support. It all goes into the heart of one and the services I can provide this way. And I love you all so very much. I wish you a beautiful month. Enjoy. Take care. Love, wisdom, and power.